Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. Today I'm going to be replicating a box which I saw on Pinterest. This one I've made as a 3-inch cube. The lid has a flap which sits down inside the box like so, and then lift the flap out and the lid tilts back but remains attached to the sides of the box. So the box itself doesn't have a back. It's the back of the lid which forms the back of the box. There is some measuring and craft knife cutting required on this particular box, but it's not too tricky to put together. So let me show you how I made it. We're going to start by making the lid of the box, and for this you'll need a piece which is 9 by 7. Along the 9-inch side, score at 3 and 6. And on the 7-inch side, score at half, 3.5 and 6.5.
At 3 inches, score down to the first score line only, rotate 180 degrees, and at 4 inches, score down to the first score line only.
Now I'm going to be working on the back of this because you can see it's getting covered in finger marks. Because you may be having double-sided cardstock, I'm just going to identify the various elements of the piece before I flip it over. So this piece here and this piece here are what we will refer to as the lid sides. So these are what we're going to shape. This is the box lid. So this is the front flap, and then this piece here is the lid and the box back combined. So that's how this piece is going to come together. So if I flip it over, we've got the lid sides, the box lid and back, the lid side, the box lid and the front flap. We're now going to prepare the piece. Now, you may want to fold and burnish first, or you may want to make your additional marks first. That's entirely your preference. I'm going to fold and burnish my piece first, so I know I'm then doing any measurements from score lines rather than from lines which may then change slightly when I fold and burnish the piece. So we have the piece in this orientation. If you work on the premise that you've got these two additional score lines here, we're going to be working on the two pieces which are underneath the additional score lines. These two score lines here are the score lines from which we want to do our measurements. I'm going to line my ruler up with the point where the score lines intersect and measure along and make a pencil mark at 1.5 inches. Do the same in the left hand square, 1.5 inches. I'm then going to measure up 1/2 inch from that pencil mark. Draw the line up. Do the same on this side. I'm then going to measure in towards the score line 1/2 inch and make a mark. So, and then do this again, measure in towards the score line at 1/2 inch. This piece here is the tab which is going to sit inside the slot on the base element. Now we want to shape the side of the lid. You could add a curve in here, you could cut a straight line straight across, it's whatever you prefer.
But you want your line or your curve to run from this point here up to this point here.
Also bear in mind, if you're adding a curve, for instance, if you're going to add pattern paper onto the outside, you want to be able to replicate that curve on the pattern paper. So you could just draw a straight line if that's your preference. I'm going to use my largest circle die and draw on the outside edge just to create a curve, look to my box. And then do the same this side. So this element here will be cut away. If you haven't folded and burnished, do that now. Now we're going to cut our box lid. We'll start with the piece in this orientation. I'm going to cut up these 2 score lines up to the 1/2 inch score line, like so. And then just take a wedge, like so. Rotate. I'm going to completely remove this section, and you want to make sure you cut that as neat as possible, because this piece here is going to be free, as it were. And now I'm going to cut up my 1/2 inch line and cut the side of the lid into shape. Rotate 180 degrees. I'm going to cut down this right hand score line past the additional 1/2 inch score line that we cut, so this piece is separated. Rotate and cut along the additional score line, and then cut a wedge, like so. Move along, cut down this score line, rotate, cut along the additional score line, take a wedge, and then I'm going to remove this remaining tab and then cut away the excess which is on the lid side. You don't really want to reduce the length of these, but you could round these, make these more curved if you so wish. So I've just taken the corner off of mine, but it hasn't reduced the length at all. We can now glue our piece together. Flip the piece over. You want to add glue to these 2 tabs here, and then they will pull round and fix to the lid like so. That's the lid element of our piece. For the box base, you'll need a piece which is 10 by 6. Along the 10 inch side, this is scored at 1/2, 3.5, 6.5, and 9.5. On the 6 inch side, this is scored at 3. At 3.5, score down to what will be the second score line. Rotate the piece 180 degrees and then do the same at 2.5. So through the first score line down to the second score line. Once again, I'm going to work on the reverse. So I'm just going to identify the pieces of the box. So this is going to have the slot in for the lid to fit. This has the slot in for the lid to fit. This is the base of the box. And then this is the front of the box, just to give you an idea how the pieces come together, because I appreciate I'm going to be working on the other side. Again, decide whether you want to do your folding and burnishing before we make the markings for the slots, or if you want to do that afterwards. I'm going to make the marks on the slots on this reverse. What I would recommend is before you cut the slots, add your patterned paper onto the slot sides, so that when you're cutting the slots, you're cutting through the pattern paper and the cardstock at the same time. Let's fold and burnish. Sit the base in this orientation. Our measurements are going to be from this score line and this score line. Measure up the score line 1 inch. So
do the same on the left hand score line of that square.
Measure across from the pencil mark we've just made 5/8 of an inch. and draw in the line. Do the same this side. Measure along the bottom edge 1 1/4 and make a pencil mark. Do the same this side. And then from the pencil mark we've just made, measure up 3/8 of an inch and make a pencil mark. Same on this side at the same time. Then we're going to join the pencil mark at 3/8 of an inch up to the end of the line, like so. So when we cut our slot, we're going to cut across and across, like so. We'll now cut the rest of the piece. Then I'm going to add my DSP onto the reverse of these two sides, and then I'm going to cut the slots. So you can do this element in whatever order is your preference. Start with the piece in the landscape orientation, and I've got the slot sides at the top. Cut through the first score line, through the additional score line and up to the long horizontal. Rotate and cut that section away. So that removes that.
This is a lid flap, not a glue tab as indicated, so you may not want to cut a wedge from the ends of this.
Rotate it back and cut through the next full score line, past the additional, like so. Rotate and cut along the additional score line.
This creates a glue tab, not the box flap as indicated on the piece.
Rotate it back. We're going to do the same on this side. Move along to the last score line, cut up to the central horizontal, rotate, remove that section, cut along the additional.
Again, this creates a glue tab, not a box flap as indicated. And again, this will be a lid flap, not the glue tab as indicated.
I'm going to just add a finger notch into the front of here. I'm now going to add my DSP onto these two pieces. I'm now going to cut along the pencil line, and you want to cut the slot so that it's going to be wide enough for the thickness of your cardstock to go through, and you also want to try and cut it as a clean cut because you want this piece to be able to move freely. And I did find certainly on the prototype that I made, if you don't get a nice clean cut, it does catch. So that's just something to bear in mind. I'll cut my slots. So if I just fold this over, this lid is going to sit over the top of the side like so, and then the lid will tilt back, and you can see that does run quite freely, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to do the same on this side. Let's put our piece together, and let's join up the front of the box. Let's join the lid and the base together. So it goes this way round, and this tab is going to sit inside. Slot that on the inside. You want to have these pieces on the outside. Let's flip this over. Sit that like so. Get that lined up. Just go in and burnish that down. Push these bits into the slots. If you just curl this bit over slightly, it will fit into the slot. That's both sides in. And then the lid will come over and slot in the top like so. You can undo the box and then the lid will come back like so. So that's effectively the box finished and ready to decorate the remaining sides. Box is now ready just for some sort of topper. I did manage to almost pattern match the sides up, and I did that by cutting another square the same size, 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. I laid it over the top and just marked approximately 1/8 an inch at the top and at the bottom. I then used the circle die the next size down to join up the 2 pencil marks. So the curve's not 100% accurate, but overall I'm quite pleased with how it looks. So here's today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.